We're live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Coming up in the next hour. President Draupadi Murmu calls for expanding India-North Macedonia cooperation in pharma, agriculture, renewable energy and emerging tech, says stronger business partnerships unlock new opportunities for both countries. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar calls for deeper cooperation to de-risk and diversify, underlines importance of maritime trade at ASEAN Post-Ministerial Conference with India 2026 in Manila. Trump warns to target Iranian nuclear site at Pickaxe Mountain area, says U.S. not finished as Iran widens attacks on Gulf states. Tehran warns attack on nuclear facilities would expand war. France becomes the first EU country to ban social media for children under 15, legislation to take effect on existing accounts from January 2027. Torrential rains continue to wreak havoc in northeastern state of Assam. 21 killed in a day as flood situation worsens. Chief Minister to visit worst affected districts to review relief and rescue operations. And on to the details now. President Draupadi Murmu called for a significant expansion of economic engagement between India and North Macedonia, addressing the inaugural session of the India-North Macedonia Business Forum in Skopje, capital of Macedonia. President Murmu urged businesses from both the countries to move beyond trade and build long-term partnerships through investment, technology collaboration and joint ventures. Here's more on this report from Macedonia.
President Draupadi Murmu's historic visit to North Macedonia began by focusing on increased economic engagement between the two nations. Trade and investment cooperation was the focus during the business summit addressed by President Draupadi Murmu and North Macedonian President Gordana Silnovska-Davkova.
To move from trade to a true economic partnership, we must focus on mutual investments. The scope for new investments spans across several sectors, including digital innovation and artificial intelligence, pharmaceuticals and healthcare, agro-processing, and the green energy transition. I am pleased to see representations from this field here today.
Excitement for future collaboration was evident in all participants of the summit as India's workforce, market, and innovation combined with North Macedonia's geographic location and duty-free access to the European Union could help bring the two nations closer.
During the business summit, both presidents emphasized the need to increase trade ties, enhance economic engagement, and the enthusiastic response from the delegates during the summit only highlights the potential of the India-North Macedonia relationship. With camera person Jagmohan Pradhan reporting from Skopje in North Macedonia, this is Jayanti Jha for DD India.
Well, early on Tuesday, President Draupadi Murmu addressed the Assembly of North Macedonia and highlighted the deep historical and civilizational links between India and North Macedonia. President Murmu said democracy is a shared value that unites both the nations and stressed the importance of greater interaction between parliamentarians to exchange best practices in public policy making.
Relationship was set in motion more than 2 millennia ago. The historic expedition of arrears of traders from this region opened vital corridors for trade, philosophy and art, connecting our early civilizations. Today, this historical connection thrives through cultural synthesis. Your rich traditions resonate deeply with India's pluralistic ethos.
And to get us more, we are joined by correspondent Jayanti Jha from North Macedonia. Well, Jayanti, President Murmu had several engagements on her first day in North Macedonia. What were the highlights from day one of President Murmu's visit?
Good morning from Skopje. It was a very action-packed day, the first day of President Murmu's historic visit to North Macedonia. She met her counterpart, the President of North Macedonia. She met the Prime Minister. She addressed their parliament, where she spoke about the values of democracy. In India, the philosophy of Vasudev Kutumbakam and the value of diversity in India. Both presidents emphasized the need to expand trade cooperation between the two nations. This was further reiterated during the business events that both presidents addressed later in the day.
All right. Also, what is on the agenda for day two of President Murmu's visit?
On day two of President Murmu's visit, she will be paying tribute to Mother Teresa at her memorial in Skopje. Now, Mother Teresa is a very interesting connection between the two nations. She was born here in Skopje, but later worked in India and went on to become an Indian citizen. Yesterday, President Murmu called her Skopje's most famous daughter. So today she'll be paying tribute to her. She will also be inaugurating a bust of Mahatma Gandhi at the Skopje Museum. Yesterday also both presidents spoke of the ideals of Mahatma Gandhi, the idea of non-violence, and with this statue from the people of India to the people of North Macedonia, both countries want to establish their respect and value for peace in the world.
All right. Also, President Murmu addressed a business forum yesterday. What makes North Macedonia such an attractive destination for business as well as for investment?
Yes, yesterday trade was the focus of the engagement between the two presidents. Increasing economic engagement was the focus, and that's because both India and North Macedonia can work together to increase investment, to increase trade. North Macedonia is situated in a very good location geographically. It connects Central Europe to Eastern Europe. It also has duty-free access to the European Union. And combine that with India's workforce, India's market, there is a lot that both countries can work towards together. So economic engagement is the focus of this visit, and it was highlighted during the business event yesterday, where there was extreme enthusiasm from business delegations of both countries.
All right. Thank you so much, Jayanti, for all that information from North Macedonia. And India and North Macedonia identified 3 T's: trade, technology and tourism, to help expand the cooperation between the two countries during the historic visit of President Draupadi Murmu to the country. Well, the details were shared by the Ministry of External Affairs Secretary West C.B. George during a special press briefing. He underlined that the visit marks a historic milestone in India-North Macedonia relations, as this is the first ever bilateral visit by an Indian president to North Macedonia since the establishment of diplomatic relations in 1995. He said both presidents discussed all aspects of bilateral relations and underscored the need for identifying new areas of cooperation to further strengthen our bilateral ties.
Areas such as digital technology, healthcare, pharma, automotive, agriculture and agro products, new technologies including AI as priority areas for cooperation. Both sides also agreed to increase bilateral trade substantially in coming years. The President of North Macedonia expressed a keen interest on cooperation in the field of traditional healthcare practices, including yoga. Both countries have renewed an MOU on cooperation in the field of healthcare for a further period of 5 years, which aims to enhance cooperation through joint initiatives and technology development in health sector, including in healthcare facilities.
Well, C.B. George also recalled North Macedonia's support to India in the fight against terrorism and said North Macedonia had strongly condemned the Pahalgam terror attacks in Jammu and Kashmir in India last year.
As you are aware, North Macedonia has supported India in its fight against terrorism, and I recall that it had strongly condemned the Pahalgam terror attacks in Jammu and Kashmir in India last year.
Well, India has also condemned the Odisha attack that killed 4 Indian seafarers. The issue of safety of seafarers takes center stage once again. Amidst the recent regional conflicts, and global shipping has faced numerous threats that challenge the long-established right to freedom of navigation for merchant ship, putting at risk the lives of civilian sailors as well.
The safety of seafarers has been severely compromised in 2 major maritime theatres linked to Russia-Ukraine conflict and Iran-related tensions. On July 19, the Russia missile strike on a ship carrying corn near Ukraine's southern port of Odisha killed 10 people, including 4 Indian nationals, with others Syrian and a Ukrainian pilot. While in Iran-related conflicts, Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen intensified attacks from late 2023 targeting ships in solidarity with Palestinians linked to Israel-Hamas tensions. This escalated into the broader Iran-involved crises, particularly in the Strait of Hormuz in 2026 amid direct US-Israel-Iran hostilities. So what are the different instruments available globally to protect global shipping? Let's take a look. The International Maritime Organization is the United Nations specialized agency with responsibility for the safety and security of shipping and the prevention of marine and atmospheric pollution by ships. IMO protects global shipping from attacks primarily through diplomatic resolutions, International Ship and Port Facility Security (ISPS) Code, and Industry Developed Best Management Practices (BMP). International Ship and Port Facility Security (ISPS) Code is a comprehensive mandatory framework under SOLAS, or Safety of Life at Sea, that ensures the security of ships and port facilities worldwide. Under the UN's SOLAS Convention, all vessels over 500 gross tonnage must implement comprehensive onboard security plans overseen by their flag states to mitigate external threats and acts of terrorism. Best Management Practices (BMP) for maritime security is a global, consolidated industry standard designed to help vessels detect, avoid, deter, delay, and report security incidents. United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea lays down a comprehensive regime of law and order for the world's oceans, establishing rules for the allocation of states' rights and jurisdiction in maritime spaces, the peaceful use of the oceans, and the management of their resources. Often referred to as the Constitution for the Oceans, it spans 320 articles to balance national sovereignty with international rights. It was adopted in 1982 and entered into force in 1994. Notably, in the Iran-US conflict, neither the United States nor Iran has ratified the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, but both invoke UNCLOS principles differently in the Strait of Hormuz. Amidst the escalating maritime security crisis in West Asia, India launched a comprehensive seafarer-first response, directing an unprecedented whole-of-government approach to safeguard every Indian seafarer operating in the conflict-affected region. Bureau Report, DD India.
And still to come in DD India Newshour. After meeting his Lebanese counterpart, Joseph Aoun, US President Trump announces resumption of direct flights by US airlines to Lebanon. Amidst continued protests to replace Alexander Syrsky, Commander Drapatiev appointed Ukraine's commander-in-chief. And Europe battles relentless wildfires as extreme heat fuels fresh blazes across many countries.
स्वागत आहे टू मॅग्नेटिक महाराष्ट्र. the richness of Maharashtra as one family, united by the collective vision of building a better tomorrow.
Welcome back. You're watching TD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and moving on, the U.S. military said it has completed its 11th consecutive day of strikes on Iran. U.S. Central Command also said the strikes targeted Iranian military operations centers, maritime capabilities, aircraft hangars, and drone storage facilities as well. Now, the U.S. President Donald Trump warned on Tuesday that the United States was not finished attacking Iran. Trump said Iran would need more than 20 years to recover from the damage inflicted in the West Asia war. Trump also said he would take care of Yemen's Iran-backed Houthi rebels if they followed through on a threat Monday to blockade Saudi Arabia's ports.
This one, Iran is bigger. It's a more complex situation, but we're probably doing equally as well if you look at the damage that's been done. And again, as I said to the young man that just posed the question over here, if we left today, it would take them decades to rebuild, and I don't believe they could ever rebuild. And honestly, they haven't seen anything yet. We've been nice. We've been nice. And we'll be hitting that area probably pretty soon, and there's not a thing they can do about it. Normally I wouldn't say that. If I thought they could do something about it, I would never say that. But we'll be hitting that area pretty soon, and very heavily.
Well, explosions were reported in the southeastern coastal cities of Chabahar and Konarak, and 2 explosions were also heard in Bushehr. Earlier, Iran targeted U.S. military sites in Bahrain, Kuwait and Jordan, and a tanker was hit in the Strait of Hormuz at the mouth of the Gulf. Now, Iran's Revolutionary Guards confirmed a strike on Jordan, saying they had targeted a complex housing U.S. terrorist forces in the region of Rukban. Also, 2 oil tankers carrying Saudi crude to Asia reversed course in the Red Sea on Tuesday after threats from Yemen's Iran-aligned Houthis. The Revolutionary Guard said Tuesday that 2 tankers attempting to transit the strait were hit by explosions, resulting in massive fires that brought them to a standstill. And for more on this, we have Akshay Dongre joining us. Well, good morning, Akshay. With the U.S. now claiming 11 consecutive days of strikes on Iran, while President Trump is also saying the campaign is not finished, we see the conflict getting wider and bigger now. What's your take?
Well, it is getting bigger, especially given the fact that the hope that was there, that there will be ceasefire, there will not be a war of attrition, there will be a logical conclusion to this illogical conflict that has been going on. It has all gone out in air as far as the tall claims about ceasefire is concerned, about the proud people of Iran, of the great leaders of Iran that was said by US President Donald Trump, and perhaps that's the reason why many of the statements that are being given by Donald Trump are not being taken on the face value. Now, there is always a hidden meaning behind it. There probably be no meaning behind whatever Donald Trump is saying, and this is the problem, especially when we have to calibrate the statements by Donald Trump to understand that what exactly is the world's most powerful man saying when it comes to issues of global peace, global trade, economy, etc. So yes, the conflict is getting wider. Now US is talking about attacking the Houthis in Yemen. The Houthis are trying to target the ports of Saudi Arabia, the Bab al-Mandab, including the Strait of Hormuz, the Oman corridor. All of these, if they get closed, there can be havoc in the international oil market and also in the prices of oil. That is quite important for countries and economies to sort of maintain and to pay for. So this is going to be a devastating situation for the global economy more than anything when we look at from the military perspective.
Of course, the global economy is getting badly affected. Akshay, given Iran's reported strikes also on the US military sites as well, and also the threats to shipping in the Red Sea and the Strait of Hormuz, and the growing economic cost of the conflict, as you've been talking about, how close is the region to a multi-front war now?
Well, a multi-front war would be possible in more of a situation where, more multiple, allies are there with Iran, especially when we talk about conventional militaries, not just the militant groups like Houthis or the Hezbollah. So, from what we see, there can be a multi-front war against Iran more than Iran
Right.
opening several front against the US and their allies, because the
Yes.
US has its allies all over the place. However, that also poses another challenge. That perhaps is the reason why Iran has not been attacked despite attacking the US bases in all almost all the south all the surrounding countries,
Yes.
is because it will put a question mark on the unity of the countries from the West Asia. But as we move away from a ceasefire and move to more consecutive strikes and more strikes against each other, yes, there is always a probability of more fronts getting opened, especially if the US pressurizes these countries. Many of them dependent on the entire petrodollar arrangements that has been made. So it is quite likely now, more than earlier it was, that there can actually be more fronts that can be opened in this conflict.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Akshay, for all that analysis. And U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth told the Senate on Tuesday that the U.S.-Israel war on Iran had cost $37.5 billion so far. Now, during an appearance before the Senate Appropriations Committee, Hegseth provided an updated account of the war's cost, up from a previous estimate of nearly $29 billion in mid-May. Hegseth defended the Trump administration's roughly $88 billion supplemental funding request, calling it urgent, necessary. Hegseth also called on lawmakers to not just fund the supplemental request, but also a $1.5 trillion budget request for the year 2027.
What the war has cost us so far in this, the 5th month of the first year of this war in Iran?
Senator, the estimate we have as of today is $37.5 billion.
And is the current activity, which we've been told about, the exchange of fire back and forth in Iran, an indication that that number is going to go up in the months ahead?
Some of that number captures additional O&M, mill pay, and other that would be anticipated through the fiscal year. So some of that anticipates what costs would be going out in the future as well.
So the new number you've given me is what?
$37.5 billion.
And that represents the cost of the war through what period of time?
Through now for certain aspects of it, but also mill pay, O&M, other anticipated costs through September 30th.
Well, U.S. President Donald Trump met his Lebanese counterpart, Joseph Aoun, at the White House on Tuesday. During the meeting, Trump vowed to support the country with disarming Iran-backed Hezbollah and forging a lasting peace with Israel. Meanwhile, President Aoun stressed the urgent need for a full Israeli withdrawal from Lebanese territory. After the talks, Trump said he would authorize the resumption of direct flights by U.S. airlines to Lebanon, which have been suspended since the 1985 hijacking by Lebanese Islamist militants. The U.S. flights were suspended in 1985 after the hijacking of TWA Flight 847 from Athens, Greece, en route to Rome, Italy, that was forced to land in Beirut. During the 17-day ordeal, a U.S. Navy diver was brutally killed as well. And speaking to the UN Security Council on Tuesday, the Secretary General's representative on Syria sounded notes of optimism about the country's prospects, even amid a legacy of internal conflict and turmoil throughout the wider region. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres will travel to Syria later this week and will meet President Ahmed al-Sharaa. This will be Guterres' first visit to Syria as UN Secretary General. U.S. Deputy Ambassador to the UN, Tammy Bruce, said that a stable, unified Syria at peace with itself and its neighbors will enhance peace and security.
The lifting of U.S. restrictions on Syria will continue to unlock international trade and investment opportunities, contributing to the rebuilding of Syria. A stable, unified Syria at peace with itself and its neighbors will enhance peace and security for the Syrian people and for those in the region and beyond. These developments are an important reminder of how far Syria has come in such a short time. It is, in fact, remarkable.
And moving on, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Tuesday named a young Major General Mikhailo Drapetye as the Commander-in-Chief of Ukraine's military after days of street protest. Zelensky replaced Alexander Syrsky, 60, with Drapetye, 43, a respected and experienced commander who led the country's land forces from 2024 to 2025, and it is described as a general of a new generation. In his evening address, Zelensky also said that he had offered former Defense Minister Mikhailo Fedorov, whose surprise dismissal sparked a political crisis, a decent post to oversee the technological component of the state. Now, the surprise government reshuffle last week led to a political crisis that exposed weaknesses in Ukraine's domestic governing due to the lack of elections during the conflict. An Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong raised concern over Beijing's test of a nuclear-capable missile in the South Pacific as she met her Chinese counterpart in Manila. A Chinese submarine fired the ballistic missile fitted with a dummy warhead this month, reaching far into the Pacific Ocean. Australia has previously said it did not receive sufficient notice of the missile test, and a dozen Pacific Island countries have denounced it for violating the region's wish to remain free of nuclear weapon testing. Monitors have said the rocket appeared to land in a patch of ocean somewhere between Solomon Islands, Nauru and Tuvalu. And French Parliament on Tuesday approved a ban on social media use for children under the age of 15, making it the first country in the European Union to introduce such an age limit. The bill, championed by President Emmanuel Macron, passed the Senate by 243 votes to 2 and the National Assembly by 279 votes to 81. Now, the ban will come into effect from the 1st of January 2027 after a 4-month transition period for existing accounts. New account creation will be prohibited from September 1st, while educational platforms and online encyclopedias will remain exempt. Platforms will be required to introduce an age verification system with the specific tools yet to be determined. Exceptions include YouTube and WhatsApp, where video viewing and messaging will remain unaffected, but commenting and sharing functions will be restricted. The law also bans mobile phone use in high schools from September 1st, except in specific cases approved by the schools themselves. Also, French President Emmanuel Macron thanked the members of parliament for backing this legislation. In a social media post, Macron said, and I quote him, "Social media will be banned for those under 15 starting back to school, thanks to the parliamentarians. It's up to the Constitutional Council to rule, then on to action to make this measure concrete and protect our children online," unquote. Well, the U.S. Justice Department has proposed a June 2027 start date for a U.S. criminal trial of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro on drug trafficking charges. Former Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia Flores are facing narco-terrorism and drug trafficking charges in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York. Both are being held at a Brooklyn detention center after being captured in a U.S. military operation in Caracas and is scheduled for an ongoing pre-trial hearing. And some global weather updates now. Tropical storm Bertha churned across the northeastern Gulf of Mexico as tropical storm conditions spread across portions of the northern Gulf Coast, while a separate weather system threatened severe thunderstorms and heavy rain across the U.S. Northeast. The main threat from Bertha was expected to be heavy rainfall and localized flooding. Forecast called for several inches of rain along parts of the central Gulf Coast from western Florida to southern Louisiana through Thursday. The storm system was also forecast to bring periods of heavy rainfall to parts of the northeast, increasing the risk of flash flooding in areas already saturated by recent wet weather. In Chile, floodwaters swept through Coquimbo region, damaging homes, vehicles and farmland in El Islón after the Santa Gracia ravine overflowed and sent water and debris through this area. Chile's disaster agency reported 10 deaths, with more than 3,000 homes damaged and over 100,000 people left isolated after roads were cut off. In Bolivia, authorities in Tarija declared a state of emergency as wildfires raged across the country's southern region. Firefighters and helicopters battled wildfires across rugged hillsides as strong winds reignited hotspots, complicating containment efforts. Firefighters also battled a wildfire in El Hachimea town in Algeria's Boira province on Tuesday. Flames spread through the area as thick smoke billowed into the sky while civil protection and forest protection personnel worked to contain the blaze. Authorities reported no casualties, with firefighters containing 130 of the 172 fires recorded since Monday. In Europe, also in France, a blaze and heavy plumes of smoke was seen on Tuesday near Codignac in southern part of the country as a wildfire spread across wooded hillsides in the Var department. The fire had burned through 1,700 hectares and was advancing towards the towns of Correns, Codignac and Montfort. Authorities called it the largest wildfire in province since the start of summer. In central Spain, charred trees stood amid scorched earth on Tuesday after a wildfire tore through forested areas in the municipality of Albendego. Spain's La Merla wildfire has burned over 30,000 hectares and forced the evacuation of 34 municipalities. Spain's weather agency said the current heat wave is expected to last at least until July 23rd, bringing temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius across much of the southeastern interior and pushing wildfire danger to extreme levels. A wildfire destroyed olive groves at a farm in Italy, wiping out this year's crop and damaging trees. More than 100 interventions involving civil protection, firefighters and the regional forestry corps were reported across Sicily on Tuesday, while temperatures in inland areas were forecast to exceed 40 degrees Celsius. The blaze, part of widespread wildfires across Sicily on July 17th, forced emergency crews to protect homes in Godrano. In Argentina, heavy snowfall triggered the recent evacuation of nearly 50 people in the high mountains of Mendoza. Residents were evacuated in snow vehicles while emergency teams delivered supplies to stranded workers and crews worked to clear snow-covered roads. In some areas, snow accumulation reached 3 meters. Authorities stated that conditions remain adverse and the weather would remain challenging until 2nd of August. Forecasters warned that a strengthening El Nino could bring severe storms, heavy rainfall and increased flooding risk across parts of Argentina and the southern cone. And still to come on DD India Newshour. Monsoon session enters day 3 amid opposition protest. Indian Navy to commission indigenous ASW watercraft to Malwan, strengthening coastal defense capabilities. And heavy rains lash several states as IMD warns of flash floods, landslides and thunderstorms.
One of India's newest states, one of India's oldest lands, Jharkhand is a hidden treasure house of many wonders, from quaint towns to prehistoric rock art. From thrilling adventure sports to historical heritage sites. Discover your spiritual awakening among revered ancient temples.
The month of Shravan in the monsoons is dedicated to Lord Shiv, and that is when the temple gets its maximum footfall. Johar. Johar.
Feed your body and soul with Jharkhand's incredible spread of cuisines.
बहुत टेस्टी लगा.
Come and explore Jharkhand for an experience like never before. Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and moving on, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar emphasized that energy, food and health security can no longer be taken for granted and said both India and ASEAN are optimistic about their prospects. Delivering his opening remarks at the ASEAN Post-Ministerial Conference with India 2026 in Manila, External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar underlined the importance of maritime trade.
It is a timely reminder of what we can do for a more stable and secure future. At the same time, both India and ASEAN are optimistic about their prospects. Our eyes must therefore be firmly fixed on opportunities, even while addressing challenges. And there are many of them amongst us and between us. The India-ASEAN agenda today covers trade and investment, mobility and talent, tech, digital and AI, green and sustainability, as well as connectivity. It is only through deeper cooperation that we can de-risk and diversify.
Well, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar is visiting Manila, Philippines to attend the ASEAN framework discussions as well as participate in the Quad Foreign Ministers meeting. And moving on, in the wake of the devastating floods in Nuristan, India delivered relief materials, including food items and family tents, to Afghanistan's National Disaster Management Authority to support affected communities. It showed India's commitment of standing with Afghan people at this difficult time. At least 23 people had died, 80 had been injured, and more than 100 were missing after floods struck the eastern province of Nuristan on Monday, causing an undermined number of buildings to collapse. And India will host the 16th BRICS Health Ministers meeting in Chandigarh from Wednesday, bringing together health ministers and senior officials and technical experts from the 11-member bloc to deepen cooperation on health security, digital health, pandemic preparedness and equitable access to quality health care. The three-day program, being held as part of India's BRICS Chairship 2026, will begin with the senior officials meeting on Wednesday to finalize the draft ministerial declaration. This will be followed by the Health Ministers meeting on Thursday, to be chaired by Union Health Minister J.P. Nadda. The ministers will deliberate on key global and regional public health priorities and consider the adoption of the 16th BRICS Health Ministers Declaration. On Friday, a high-level dialogue focusing on leveraging interoperable digital health infrastructure and responsible artificial intelligence to strengthen continuity of care and build future-ready health systems across BRICS countries will be held. The event is titled BRICS Dialogue from Digital Health Records to AI-Enabled Healthcare, Strengthening the Continuum of Care through Interoperable Data Infrastructure and Responsible Artificial Intelligence. And moving on, day 3 of Parliament monsoon session to witness intense debates on key issues. The early 2 sessions were washed out as opposition parties protested over a host of issues. Early on Tuesday, the National Democratic Alliance Parliamentary Party meeting, now called Mangal Milan, was held in the Parliament House. Mangal Milan means auspicious gathering. During the meeting, NDA partners passed a congratulatory motion honouring Prime Minister Narendra Modi for becoming India's longest-serving elected Prime Minister. India's Vishal Baristo reports for more.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Tuesday asserted that strong action was taken against those involved in examination paper leaks and called for coordinated efforts by all stakeholders, including state governments, to prevent paper leaks in future examinations across the country. Briefing the media after the NDA Parliamentary Party meeting, Parliamentary Affairs Minister Kiren Rijiju said Prime Minister Narendra Modi underlined that those involved in the recent NEET paper leak case have been arrested, with 13 accused currently in jail. Rijiju said the Prime Minister stressed that those responsible should face the strictest possible punishment.
नीट के एग्जाम के बारे में आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने कहा है कि जब पेपर लीक का खबर आए तुरंत सरकार ने कार्रवाई किया और 13 लोगों को अरेस्ट करके जेल में डाल दिया गया है और साथ साथ जो छात्र हैं, स्टूडेंट्स हैं, उनका भविष्य को नुकसान ना हो इसलिए री एग्जामिनेशन नीट का प्राथमिकता दिया गया और री एग्जामिनेशन को सक्सेसफुली, सफलतापूर्वक कंडक्ट किया गया और उसका रिजल्ट निकालने में कोई विलंब नहीं किया।
On FTAs, Minister Rejiju informed that Prime Minister stressed that India has signed agreements with several countries. Prime Minister Modi said that in every free trade agreement, the interests of Indian farmers have been given the highest priority. He emphasized that all such agreements have been concluded, keeping the welfare of farmers and the national interest at the forefront.
फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट कई देशों के साथ भारत ने किया है, उस पर आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने कहा है जितना भी फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट हुए हैं उसमें किसानों को लेकर के, किसानों का इंटरेस्ट, उसको प्राथमिकता देते हुए कोई नुकसान होने नहीं देंगे। किसी भी देश के साथ, किसी भी गुट के साथ फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट हुए हैं उसमें किसानों का हित को सबसे सर्वोच्च ध्यान दिया जाएगा और दिया गया है, इसलिए ये किसानों के हित में और देश हित में रहेगा।
Referring to the ongoing monsoon session of Parliament, the Prime Minister said the NDA will play a constructive and positive role in ensuring the passage of bills. Rejiju appealed to opposition parties to cooperate in Parliament, saying that while political differences may exist, all members of Parliament have been elected to serve the nation, safeguard its future, and work for the welfare of its youth. He called upon all political parties to work together in the larger national interest. Meanwhile, the leader of the opposition in the Lok Sabha, Rahul Gandhi, met the Speaker and called for a special discussion on the NEET paper leak issue. While uproarious scenes continue to disrupt the proceedings on the second day of the monsoon session in Parliament, the opposition, led by the Congress Party, did not allow any business to be transacted in both the lower and the upper house.
Another day gone waste. Yes, this has been the story of the monsoon session. Yesterday also, due to repeated disruptions in both the houses of the Parliament, the houses could not function. And today as well, the opposition was hell-bent on its demand, despite the Prime Minister assuring that the issue of the students of the country is foremost for the country. The opposition did not relent. With cameraman Radhe in Parliament, this is Vishal Baristo for DD India.
Well, the government reached out to the opposition to find a way out of the impasse created by the Congress that has upped the ante on the NEET protest. Union Minister of State in the Prime Minister's office, Dr. Jitendra Singh, met Leader of Opposition in the Lok Sabha, Rahul Gandhi, at the Congress Dharna site near the Prime Minister's residence in New Delhi over the NEET issue. Well, following the meeting, Dr. Jitendra Singh alleged that Rahul Gandhi changed his stand after the government agreed to his demand for a discussion in Parliament on NEET and the associated movement. The minister claimed that Rahul Gandhi later sought the resignation of the Union Education Minister as an additional condition. Describing the alleged change in stand as unfortunate and contrary to every norm of democracy, Dr. Singh made the remarks on social media.
Conveyed that on behalf of the government, I could assure Rahul Gandhi ji that government is ready to have a detailed discussion on NEET related agitation, protest, also on all the other issues related to NEET. When I went back to Rahul ji with this message, he said, no, but I also want the resignation of the education minister. Then I politely tried to submit before him. I said, look here, this is not done. Now, this is not a gentlemanly behavior, because just a few minutes back you told me that if I got the assurance from the government that they were ready for a debate in Parliament on the NEET and the education-related issues, you would call off your dharna immediately. But now you're saying no. No, he said, no, it's my wish. My demands have changed now. Then I told him, I said, this doesn't behove an LOP to change stance and change goalposts that frequently and just within a couple of minutes.
Well, meanwhile, activist Sonam Wangchuk has been discharged from Safdarjung Hospital this evening and has been handed over to the team of doctors from a private hospital in Gurugram for further medical care as per the order dated 21st of July of Delhi High Court. And moving on, the Indian Navy will commission the anti-submarine warfare shallow water craft Malwan at Karwar on Wednesday. Named after the historic coastal town in Maharashtra, Malwan is the second of 8 Mahe-class ASW SWCs being built by Cochin Shipyard Limited with more than 80% indigenous content. Compact yet formidable, the ship reflects agility, precision and endurance, qualities essential for asserting dominance in shallow waters. The upcoming commissioning of Malwan marks the continued induction of a new generation of indigenous shallow water warriors, sleek, swift and proudly Indian. And now some updates on the flood situation. The northeastern state of Assam reeling under the flood water with more than 5.64 lakh people affected across 16 districts. According to a late night bulletin issued by the Assam State Disaster Management Authority, the worst hit Sivasagar district reported 13 fatalities in the last 24 hours, followed by 5 deaths in Charaideo, 2 in Golaghat and 1 in Jorhat. With these deaths, the toll in this year's flood in the state rose to 31. Chief Minister Hemanta Biswa Sarma said he would visit the worst affected districts on Wednesday to review the relief and rescue operations. Relief and rescue operations are being carried out by multiple agencies including the Air Force, the National Disaster Response Force, SDRF and Fire and Emergency Services. Well, also Jammu and Kashmir grappled with wet weather, which has triggered flash floods and landslides in the region. Residents of Kathua district have reported severe waterlogging and flooding following heavy rainfall. Flash floods triggered by the heavy rain have washed away stretches of the old Samba-Kathua road at Seher Khad, suspending traffic and cutting off access to nearby villages. Well, the IMD has forecast widespread rainfall across Uttarakhand with heavy rainfall likely on 22nd of July. Thunderstorms and lightning are also expected, while the possibility of landslides and flash floods remain in vulnerable hilly areas. Gujarat region and Madhya Maharashtra could receive heavy to very heavy rain at a few places with isolated extremely heavy showers. Konkan and Goa are also likely to record isolated very heavy rain. Well, the IMD has forecast widespread rainfall across eastern India, including Odisha. Moderate to intense lightning is also possible in several parts of the region. Well, Delhi witnessing light rain at many places and moderate showers accompanied by thunderstorms, lightning and gusty winds. Also on to Sikkim tunnel collapse update now. The death toll from the tunnel collapse at the under construction NHPC Teesta Stage 6 hydroelectric project in Sikkim's Namchi district has risen to at least 20, with rescue teams continuing efforts to locate the remaining workers trapped inside. Of the 27 people caught in the cave-in triggered by an explosion on Monday afternoon, 2 managed to escape the tunnel, while search operations remain underway for the others. Authorities said 20 bodies have been recovered so far, with 13 victims identified. And in business news, U.S. President Donald Trump said that all generic drugs being brought into the U.S. will continue having a tariff of 0% for 2 years starting from 1st of August, but after which the tariff rate will be raised to 100% for 1 year and to 200% thereafter. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said that it is done in order to reshore generic pharmaceutical production into America, with a penalty to those companies that decide not to build plant and equipment within the stated period of time given to them. More than 90% of medicines sold in the U.S. are generics, according to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. The policy on patented, branded or innovative drugs will remain unchanged. While also the Wall Street closed higher on Tuesday as a rally in semiconductor stocks boosted investor sentiment ahead of major technology earnings. The rebound in chip stocks helped to shift market focus away from West Asia tensions and tariff concerns, with investors looking to upcoming earnings from major technology companies for signals on the outlook for artificial intelligence. The S&P 500 gained 0.89%, the Nasdaq Composite rose 1.29%, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average advanced 0.74%. Well, also the oil prices climbed in Asian trade after renewed tensions in the Middle East raised concerns over global energy supplies. Brent crude rose 1.2% to $92.09 a barrel, its highest intraday level since June 11th, while U.S. benchmark West Texas Intermediate gained 1.1% to $85.23. Prices advanced after Iran targeted U.S. radar and air defense installations in the Gulf and said it had stopped two non-compliant oil tankers attempting to transit the Strait of Hormuz. While you're watching DT India News, our time now for some sports news. World number one Magnus Carlsen will compete in November's pilot event of the FIDE-approved Total Chess World Championship Tour. While the tournament from November 10 to 21st in Budapest will feature competition across three formats: Blitz, Rapid and Fast, Classic Chess, with results from all events combined to determine the overall champion. The pilot event will serve as a precursor to the inaugural global season, which is due to begin in March 2027. The official tour will feature 4 events annually in cities around the world, and the overall winner will be crowned FIDE World Combined Champion. The November event would provide a blueprint for the full-fledged championship circuit. Well, every Independence Day, the tricolour rises and India salutes. But behind those 3 bands lies nearly a half a century of struggle, 6 flags, many hands, and a flag code that governs how it flies today. Here's the remarkable story of the Tiranga. Let's take a look at this report by Suchata Loja.
Every 15th of August, the tricolour rises against the sky and a nation salutes. But the flag we honour today wasn't born in a single moment. Its design took shape across nearly half a century through many hands. India became free on the 15th of August 1947. The flag itself was adopted a few weeks earlier on the 22nd of July 1947. When the Constituent Assembly chose the Tiranga for a free nation. But where did the design begin? The early flags, 1904 to 1931. Its roots ran back decades. Sister Nivedita sketched one of the earliest nationalist flags in 1904. The Calcutta flag followed in 1906 in green, yellow and red. Madam Bhikaji Kama flew a version abroad in 1907. Tilak and Annie Besant raised the Home Rule flag in 1917, and in 1921, Pingali Venkaiah gave Mahatma Gandhi the design with a white band and a chakra added. The Congress adopted as the Swaraj flag in 1931 with saffron, white and green. And in 1947, on the eve of freedom, one final change was made. The charkha gave way to the Ashok Chakra, the 24-spoke wheel of law from the lion capital at Sarnath, turning like the eternal wheel of Dharma. Flag Code of India 2002. How the Tiranga is used is itself governed by law. The Flag Code of India 2002. It fixes the flag's proportions at 3:2 and sets out how it must be flown with dignity. In 2021, the code was amended to allow machine-made and polyester flags alongside hand-spun khadi. And in 2022, under the Har Ghar Tiranga campaign, citizens were allowed to fly the flag at home, both day and night, where once it could rise only from sunrise to sunset. Saffron for courage and sacrifice, white for peace and truth, green for faith and prosperity, and at the center, a wheel that never stops turning. 6 flags, 4 decades, one nation discovering itself, thread by thread. So whenever the Tiranga rises, it carries the dreams of everyone who imagined a free India before it existed. Sujata Lochab for DD India.
All right, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.